This video will demonstrate how to use the Interface Builder tool from the Tier 44 application in ServiceNow. Tier 44 extends the ServiceNow product model with a model interface table where we allow you to create and graphically draw interfaces using the Interface Builder on the front and back images of equipment. I will explain how to use the tool in detail as well as building interfaces on a computer room floor plan and switch. If you would like a more in-depth explanation of why this tool is important to have, visit our introduction video. There are a lot of pieces to the Interface Builder, so I want to go over everything so you can understand the most efficient way to use this tool. Starting with the top, we have the toolbar. This is where everything is to create the interfaces. The first button, Model, will return you back to the model form in the CMDB table. Next to that, you have a traditional Save and Undo buttons to save your work and undo mistakes. Now you get into the tools. The first is a selection tool that allows the user to select a single interface or draw a selection rectangle by holding down the left mouse and dragging across to draw a rectangle to select multiple interfaces at a time. You have 3 different shape tools to draw interfaces: circle, rectangle, and polygon. After drawing each one, a dialog box pops up asking for a name and interface type. You can name it whatever you want. Usually naming it based on the equipment helps keep track of the interface. And there is a list of interface types in the drop-down. The interface type is important to track to know what cables are needed for proper compatibility. And they are separated based on the relationship type to then create relationships later on with the interfaces. If you need a specific interface type, it can be added yourself in the Model Interface Type table. Go to the table, click New, and fill in the name and relationship type with the lookup list. Now back to the Interface Builder. If the dialog box does not pop up, then the interface was not created. The polygon tool is a little different in that it does not create the entire shape with one click. It drops one initial point and then you can continue to click to create points to create the desired shape. Then you will right-click to complete it. The final click is not included in the shape. When you finish the shape, a dialog box will pop up with the name and interface type. You can move around the picture by holding down the right click and dragging to see the full image. The Reset button will reset the image orientation back to the original position. Beside that, you either see back image or front image. This lets you switch sides of the image to create interfaces on both sides if needed. Upload image allows you to upload a new image to the currently selected side if you need to change it. The 2 color boxes allow you to change the draw and highlight color to whatever you wish. The default colors are red and blue. The last part of the toolbar is the Help button, which gives a pop-up of detailed directions to every part of the Interface Builder if you need to reference anything. On the right, there is another toolbar with 3 different sections: Interfaces, Properties, and Tools. The Interfaces section shows a list of all of the created model interfaces, and when one is selected from the list of the graphical palette, the item is highlighted in blue. When an interface is also selected, it can be deleted with the Delete button. It is not permanent until the page is saved. Let's take a look at the properties first. This shows a description of what the monitoring property does along with the script. There shouldn't be any big changes you would want to make here, but there are minor ones if you prefer them. You have name, which note that 2 of the same interface types cannot have the same name, but can if the type is different. Interface type, which comes from the model interface table and describes the connection that the interface can connect to. Direction, meaning parent or child, which correlates to the relationship. Both means it is bidirectional, meaning it can be parent or child. For example, network connections between servers transfer data both ways, so it is bidirectional. Orientation, the side of the image the interface appears on. The most common will always be front only and back only, which means the graphical child in the interface will only appear on the respective orientation. Visual type is the actual shape. R is rectangle, C is circle, P is polygon, and I is image. Changing this will then change the shape. The rest of the properties show the placement and details of the interface. X and Y are the coordinates in pixels on the top left of an image. Width and height are from the starting X and Y coordinates in pixels respectively. If the interface is a circle, it will show the radius, which can only be positive. In a polygon, it will also show specific coordinates to render them. A logical position is what the interface represents, and capacity is what the interface has. The checkbox at the bottom can allow multiple connections, meaning the interface can be used multiple times in relationships. If it is unchecked, it can only be used in one relationship per CI. The Tools section can help create multiple interfaces at once, with the Duplicate tool and Grid tool. Duplicate creates a copy of a singular interface. The Grid tool can create as many interfaces as you need and can be moved all at once with the pixel offset to push or pull items away or closer to each other. The interfaces are created in rows and columns which can be specified, and the order to name all of the interfaces in order. You can specify the direction and naming conventions, such as having a letter in front of the number for the interface. Let's get started with our first demonstration with using the interface builder on a floor plan. We are starting on our global map dashboard and going to our Santa Clara location. We have isographic visuals available, but the most common floor plan and probably the easiest to work with is a 2D rendering like this one. In our summary table, we can see we have 182 available rack spaces, so each letter is representing a row and each rectangle is representing a rack. We need to create interfaces for each part, the racks and rows. Let's go into the interface builder. The image is zoomed in and we can hold down the right click to move around the image. I'm going to start with row A. We are going to use the rectangle tool first and trace the entire row. Once you let go, there is a pop-up box and we can go ahead and name it and choose the type, which will be row. Then we can do another rectangle to outline the individual rack. The rack type will be space. Now, instead of creating individual interfaces every single time, we can use the Grid tool to complete the entire row at once. We need to specify the number of rows, the pixel offset to align the racks, and the naming convention. The starting number is 1, and then we want an A in front of each number. Once you submit that, the interfaces are all named and created. Be sure to save your work every so often to save the interfaces you created. Now we can start on the next row. You will do everything the same for all racks and rows as this first one. You'll create the row first, then the racks as spaces with proper naming and using whichever method you prefer, whether it is using the Grid or Duplicate tool, or creating them all individually to create the entire row of racks. The entire first half has been created, and we can actually select all of our created interfaces. There are a few different ways to speed up the process with the Grid tool or the Duplicate tool. To create the second half, we can select everything we have done so far and duplicate it for the bottom. But you have to then go back and rename the interfaces to the proper rack and row. Notice that this bottom half has 8 racks to the row, so we also need to create another rack for each row. An efficient way of doing this is using your toolbar on the right to select duplicates and rename them, or continue creating the interfaces how we did the first row. Now they are all done, and we can see 182 rack interfaces created and 24 rows. Now let's get into the demonstration with the interface builder on the switch. We can use the right click to move around the picture and see the full image. For this catalyst switch, we can use the rectangle tool on the entire front. If we actually look at the numbers on the switch, they are numbered with arrows telling the order, 1 starting on the top and 2 on the bottom, so it is a vertical numbering. The rectangle tool is already selected, so we can trace the image to draw our first interface. I'm going to name it 01X, with the type being RJ45, and submit it. We can show the properties to change whatever we need. Then we can show the tools to create the rest of the interfaces together. We can set the rows and columns, and they will appear. Then we can use the pixel offset to align the first few interfaces. We can be sure to change the naming to have all of them named correctly and submit that information. We can then use the selection tool to move all of the interfaces to align the rest. We are not quite done with the front because we have 4 more interfaces to create. We'll create them the same way with the rectangle tool, but the interface type is different, so they can have the same starting name if we wanted it to. We can use the Grid tool again to create all 4 interfaces. We can then see the names appear correctly once they are submitted. We can click the back image button to switch to the back of the switch to create the interfaces on the back, using the rectangle tool again and naming them according to what it says on the device. Then we can go ahead and create the interfaces for the power supply too. Now there are different kinds of power outlets, so it is important to pick the correct one. Now all of the interfaces on the back were created. We can go back and change the properties if they need to be changed. We can show the interfaces and see all of them from the back were created, and if we switch back to the front, we can see all of them on the front. This concludes our demonstration of using the Interface Builder to create interfaces on a floor plan and switch. This is an important step to setting up your data center within ServiceNow and before creating relationships between your racks and equipment. Our next video will show how to build relationships with the Tier 44 Relationship Builder. To try out the Interface Builder today, request a free trial from the ServiceNow store. Thanks for watching this video and stay tuned for more details and tutorials.